Rap music. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to SoleTracks, your source for the fire and sneakers music right here on YouTube. Drop a comment and like below if you mess with the movement, and if you don't, you already know you can get the fuck on. Yo, what's happening, guys? It's the end of the year. As a matter of fact, by the time you watch this, it's going to be the new year, and that means that we got so much music. We've intaked so much new music this year, man. It's been a crazy year, and honestly, I've been saying all year that 2022 has been one of the best years in music in recent memory. I think we're gonna look back at 2022 and be like, damn, this year was pretty fucking crazy. Hip hop albums of 2022. Of course, this is just my opinion. These are my favorite albums that I thought just hit on the mark. Honestly, when I created this list, I had over 40 hip hop albums, but I narrowed it down to 25 for you guys. I do have some honorable mentions, so we can go ahead and knock those out. Do want to give a quick shout out to Damo Genesis and Evidence on intros, outros, and interludes. Some good minimal sample rap from Damo Genesis and legendary producer Evidence. Ben Reaper, Baby Tron, some great Detroit trap music on there. Jeezy with Snowfall, you know, of course, some good trap music on there. ESTG, I Still Don't Feel Nothing, one of my most listened to albums of this year. Just didn't crack the top 25, but I did get some good listens out of it, man. It's just some dark indictment music, you know what I'm saying? Earl Sweatshirt with Sick, Currency with Continuance, Corday with From a Bird's Eye View, Kenny Mason Ruffs, and Saba with Few Good Things. And I want to shout out Westside Gun with 10 as well. Some good, just gritty boom bap rap to end off the Hitler Wears Hermes series. And I got even more Kenny Beats Louis, all of the Boldy James releases from this year. All of those go within my honorable mentions, and probably even more that I'm missing, but just wanted to make sure I shouted those out at least. Let's go ahead and start off the top 25. First up, number 25, we have Lupe Fiasco with Drill Music in Zion. The definition of a lyrical miracle this guy is. He decided once again to prove why nobody can really rap as good as him by creating a whole album on GarageBand in 3 days. And he attempted to make it in 1 day, and he realized that he needed to eat and sleep. So 3 days and created this album. And it sounds crazier as I'm saying it. Given the quality of the bars and the production on here, that is just crazy to me. And this is actually more accessible than his previous work. So this has quite a bit more replay value. I felt like that meant a lot coming from an artist like Lupe Fiasco, where his music kind of needs a little bit more dissection and just kind of sitting down and listening to it. I didn't listen to this album a lot, but when I did, I definitely appreciated the performances on here. I love the topics that he went through. His lyricism is still pristine. Number 24, we got The Cool Kids with Before Shit Got Weird. So many vibes were found on this album. The Cool Kids were essential to my introduction to hip hop growing up in the early 2010s. So I always try to check out their new stuff when they drop, and this album pleasantly surprised me. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Chuck English brings his nostalgic feel to his beats. It has like some 80s and 90s hip hop inspiration in them. And Sir Michael Rock is kind of just on here spitting the most hilarious and crazy shit he can say on the track. The first half is more upbeat with some harder production styles, while the second half kind of mellows out and has some real kind of drop top weather vibes going on. Really good album here, man. I think there's a lot of hard hitting tracks on here. I loved All or Nothing, Pick Up on Line 6, Light Work. So yeah, go ahead and check that out Before Shit Got Weird. 23, Joey Badass 2000. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I was slightly disappointed at this album, and I expected more harsh and rugged rap sounds that were found on 1999. But as time went on, I've grown to appreciate this album, the smooth sailing aspect of this album especially. It sounds like Joey has found his groove, and he sounds so effortless while rapping on tracks like The Baddest and Zip Codes. The 90s hip hop infused production is still there, but it sounds expensive and it sounds lavish. One of the best albums to play during the summer for sure. Great features as well. I love the songs like The Baddest, Where I Belong, Survivor's Guilt, Zip Codes. Just a very great, lush, chill album that you can throw on, but you also still get some substance with songs like Survivor's Guilt and Head High. So yeah, man, Joey Badass 2000, great. Number 22, we got Larry June with Spaceships on the Blade. Look, this album makes you want to go buy an orange Porsche 911 and eat breakfast on a patio in a high-rise apartment somewhere. Larry June just pretty much glides over every beat on here with some amazing and lavish production. This is definitely the album you play to decompress from a long day of work. Songs like 5.0 Chronicles and Organic Adjustments and I'm Him just features those hard-hitting but mellow, vibed out songs. Larry June he's not going to do too much on the beat. He's just going to kind of let you sit there and vibe out to his tracks. And that's why I love this album so much, man. Spaceships on the Blade, number 22. 21, we are going with Logic, Vinyl Days. Man, the essence of hip hop lives within this album right here, man. Just chopped up samples and some freestyles from Logic. And I think it's just some great execution on these 90s boom bap beats. It feels so pure. Interludes, the funk flex drops. It just feels like a classic mixtape. And I'm so happy that Logic killed this because this was highly anticipated. I love the documentary that came out along with it. And yeah, man, I think this is just some really good boom bap hip hop, and it definitely wears its inspirations on its sleeve, but at the same time, it's so Logic. Yeah, Vinyl Days, great album. Number 20, we got EARTHGANG with Ghetto Gods. Not a bad song lies on this album. One of the most solid releases of the year. Dr. Dot and Johnny Venus find the perfect balance between playfulness and the substance on Ghetto Gods here. Their previous album kind of seemed a little bit more experimental, but this time around, they took a more serious take, like on American Horror Story, like on Power. But I mean, every verse that they dropped on each track from these guys are impressive and purposeful. And the production is great as well. Waterboys is definitely one of my favorite tracks from this year with that Jid and J. Cole verse on it. American Horror Story is also a great song. EARTHGANG, Ghetto Gods, man, go ahead and check that out. Number 19, we got Meechy Darko with Gothic Luxury. As a fan of the Flatbush Zombies, I always love the grittiness of Meechy Darko's voice and his eccentric delivery. So to hear that on his own solo album is pretty exciting. I was honestly kind of blown away at how good this album was production wise, and I think the title kind of just describes how this album sounds perfectly. It sounds like Gothic Luxury. Most of the tracks have this dark atmospheric sound to it that kind of sounds a little bit grandiose. It sounds luxury, it sounds lavish, and Meechy Darko kind of comes on every track, pretty much obliterating some of these beats with his voice and vocal delivery. But I was also impressed how he was able to kind of cater to the sound a little bit, and even though his voice is so brash, he still came off in a different tone and made the song sound good. Lavish Habits, definitely one of my most addicting songs of the year in my opinion. I couldn't stop playing it. Yeah, man, Meechy Darko, Gothic Luxury, I think that is a great listen from this year. One of the most underrated ones for sure. Number 18, coming in with Black Thought and Danger Mouse with Cheat Codes. Black Thought, he just sounds like he was born to rap. When I think of hip hop and what hip hop sounds like, I often think of Black Thought's rapping. The most vivid imagery of climbing through the trenches and the black struggle are found all over this album through Black Thought's lyrics. And this is over top of the gritty sample chops and the heavy distorted beats from producer legend Danger Mouse. Every time I turn this album on, I want to sit down and just listen to every word. I know that I'm taking on a journey here. I know that there's going to be so much different sounds. I love how explorative the samples are and the production is on this album. There's features from MF Doom and ASAP Rocky. Just a great album right here, man. It's pretty short, it's pretty concise, but it does its job for those hardcore boom bap 90s hip hop fans out there. Ooh, number 17, we're coming in with Conway The Machine, God Don't Make Mistakes. This album shows why Conway, I think, has the best potential in Griselda. On this album, you'll hear the grimiest boom bap tracks you'll hear all year on here. You got Lock and Load, Piano Love, John Woo Flick, but also features some of the most thought-provoking tracks such as Stressed and God Don't Make Mistakes, which is the outro track. I just love how he's able to give us both sides and do both sides exceptionally well. I mean, listening to Stressed, you can actually hear the pain in his voice, and he's explaining everything in a way where it resonates with a lot of people. And even on the grimy tracks like Piano Love or Lock Load, you got that murderous sound going on in the background with that Alchemist production. You got production from the Alchemist, Derringer, Hit Boy, Justice League, and many more people. It just makes this album so good. It sounds very good, and I think it'll age very well. I think eventually we're gonna look back at this album and we're gonna be like, this is a classic, just given how solid this album is. See, this album is a lot of people's top 10, top 5 album going on this year, and I don't disagree at all, man. Conway the Machine, God Don't Make Mistakes is fire. No better place to put Mr. Benny the Butcher. Tana Talk 4 is number 16 on the list. Benny hit on all cylinders here. Given he's at the highest point of his career, he still sounds hungry and trying new things. I love that he doesn't stay in the gritty boom bap lane that we've known him to be in. He gets introspective on tracks like Johnny P's Caddy. He's still in his best element on tracks like Super Plug, where he's kind of just rapping what he's definitely comfortable in, where everybody knows that Benny the Butcher is going to give you those drug-riddled bars. Not only is he giving the fans what they want, he's also being creative, especially on tracks like 10 Crack Commandments, where he flips Biggie's original 10 Crack Commandments. And the features on here all come to play and compete with Benny on here equally as well. I mean, Uncle Bun with 38 Special, that shit makes you want to grab a ski mask and go rob a drugstore or some shit. I think Benny is operating on the highest level here, rapping at his best no matter the topic. Amazing production, amazing album. Benny the Butcher, Tana Talk 4. We're closing in on that top 10, man. Westside Boogie's coming in at number 15 with More Black Superheroes. Easily one of my most listened to albums of this year. The Compton rapper Westside Boogie dropped what was a very anticipated album from his fans, including me. And he was coming off an amazing album called Everything's for Sale, and I think that was a fan favorite. So a lot of fans were looking for that follow-up, and I think he dropped what was mostly a very enjoyable album. On the album, Boogie finds himself tackling his own insecurities and looking himself in the mirror, but he does it in a way where it's easily digested, and I think he's done a great job of this his whole career. Always love his rapping style. It's very direct. It's kind of like you're talking straight to him in a therapy session, kind of. One of his best attributes is the ability to change his delivery and tone depending on the topic. And on this album, he's also great at creating some infectious melodies that's exemplified on songs like Nonchalant. But the singles I and Stuck were like anthems this year. I just love the hard-hitting production that he gave on here. I love that he tackled some melodies as well on songs like Can't Get Over You with Smino and Tizo Touchdown, and even songs that Boogie is known for bringing, like LOL SMH2 or Prideful 2 were great on this as well. I think this was a great album. Great West Coast production on here with some melodic stuff added into it. Great album here, More Black Superheroes. Future coming in at 14 with I Never Liked You. The fact that a veteran in the game like Future dropped one of his best albums this year is crazy to me. I'm not saying that he doesn't make good music or hasn't been making good. I'm just saying I did not expect him to drop a DS2 level album at this point in his career. It's dark, it's ignorant, it's nasty as fuck, man. It's super fucking Future. I mean, after the first 3 tracks, I've racked up a couple drug and gun charges. But wait, it's not all indictment music. There's 2 love songs on here. I mean, it is the care from his grandmother that makes him gentle when he cares for the ladies. I'm still laughing at that fucking bar, man. That was weird. But nah, man, this is high-level trap music from the legend Future himself. This thing, song for song, will get you right, man. It'll get you motivated. If you like that trap-style music, this is definitely the one. Number 13, we're coming in with YGTUT, In My Mind. Chattanooga's own YGTUT cultivates a collection of super smooth vibes on In My Mind. The ambiance of this album creates this energy that makes it super easy to listen to and such a pleasing listen for me. YGTUT just weaves these bars in between this production so effortlessly. And no, there's no super impressive lyrics or over-the-top instrumentals, but this thing was so easy to throw on and vibe out to that it just made such high in my list. How this album plays, it reminds me of last year's The House Is Burning by Isaiah Rashad or the Vince Staples self-titled album. In terms of replay value, this thing is just super high. Just some really good, chill, vibey hip-hop. Ooh, number 12, we got IDK with Simple. One of my favorite artists, IDK, has continued to expand his sound even after dropping one of the best albums last year. And teaming up with Kaytranada seems like this should have happened a long time ago. These guys don't miss a step together on this album. The chemistry is great. The dance-ready, bass-heavy production with IDK's flows and melodies proved just to be infectious together. Dog Food is one of the best songs of this year with that Denzel Curry feature on there. I just love the preciseness of this project. It's only 8 tracks long, and I just really hope to get more from these guys in the future. Just a really great album to vibe out to. You can dance to a couple songs on here. It's pretty good. Ooh, we're closing in at number 11. We got Redveil, Learn to Swim. I came across this album just being curious, and I was pleasantly surprised by the production on here, especially. Redveil, being just 18 at the time when he produced this, refined his production style that fuses chopped up samples and wavy, hard-hitting beats. And this is accentuated with his relentless delivery and introspective bars. This album is soulful, but it still has that gritty underdog essence to it with just that fiery delivery from Redveil. I think he has crazy potential to be one of the best rapper producers. I'm super impressed with this release. Learn to Swim. Great album. All right, here we are. Number 10. We are in the top 10, guys. This is it. Number 10, we're coming with Little Simz, No Thank You. I've always called Little Simz the female Kendrick Lamar. And while that's not to slight her at all, I've been proven time and time again that she's such a powerful artist in her own right. No Thank You comes after last year's release of the amazing Sometimes I Can Be an Introvert. And while that album is over an hour of grandiose hip-hop, No Thank You pretty much gives those same anecdotes and things that make that album great, but in a more concise and direct manner, only being 10 tracks long, and every track is filled with purpose and amazing execution. On here, Little Simz further embarks on her journey through life, finding herself dealing with the problems that come with the success of her last album. A lot of times on here, she's talking about dealing with the industry and industry standards and norms. And she does this with an unrelentless delivery, with raw and direct lyrics that are accentuated with gospel choirs and a full-on orchestra. The album feels like a movie soundtrack to Little Simz' hero story. Very impressed at how great this album was. It seems like it was produced by Inflow, which seems to be like her go-to hand-in-hand producer. Yeah, man, this is a great listen right here. I think it's a little more accessible than Sometimes I May Be an Introvert. I didn't listen to that album as much, but I see myself already listening to this one just a lot more, given the shorter runtime, the less tracks. Yeah, man, I think this is a great album right here. Please give this a listen. Just do that. Number 9, we're coming in with Ab-Soul Herbert. The Black Lip Pastor came back like he never left here, spraying off genius bars left and right. Although I did like his last 2 albums, I do think that this is his best release since Control System. And even though this album is supposed to be a little bit more introspective, it has introspective cuts on it, some deeper cuts detailing what he's been going through, I do think he sounds super confident on here as far as rapping and giving those heavy bars, especially with the first couple tracks on here. No Report Card serves as an example of his lyrical prowess, going bar for bar, not missing a step. I think production wise on this album, it's hitting on all cylinders with a wide variety of hip hop and R&B instrumentals. And the features on here shine as well, from like a fiery Joey Badass verse on Moonshooter, or how Janae Aiko decides to duet with Ab-Soul on the primal sounding The Wild Side, and Russ and Big Sean come to play on here on Go Off. There's just so much to grab from this album. It's got the bar heavy joints like Hollandaise, Good Man, Gotta Rap. It's got the introspective cuts like Do Better and Herbert. And by the way, Do Better is one of the most heart-wrenching songs of this year, especially accompanied with the video. The R&B vibes on The Wild Side and The Art of Seduction. And it's even got the hype joint to play in the gym like Fuck Out My Face or Church on the Move. All in all, a great, very hip-hop album from one of the best rappers in the game, Ab-Soul Herbert. Number 8, we're going with Freddie Gibbs, Soul Sold Separately. At this point in career, I think he needed an album like this in his discography. He's built his name dropping classics with legendary producers like Madlib and The Alchemist that rule the underground hip-hop world, and it's even shown his versatility with the upbeat trap sounds provided by Kenny Beats on Freddie. But Soul Sold Separately doesn't tie itself down production wise. He's grabbing multiple producers on here as well as features to create a more shiny and polished album that can be sold to the masses. He still plays to his strengths with the Alchemist produced Blackest in the Room or the Madlib produced CIA. But on every track, there's pretty much a different producer, and that allows Freddie to like apply his rapid fire flows to different styles and sounds that we usually don't hear Freddie on. Pain and Strife and Too Much sound radio friendly, with features from Offset and Moneybagg Yo, but it doesn't sound played out in my opinion. I think Freddie did a great job of installing his personality on here. Lobster Omelet and Gold Rings are an example of the expensive, lavish sounding production on here, on the casino theme that's shown throughout the album as well. And given the recent drama that's been surrounding him in the past couple of years, he gets introspective on Dark Hearted and Grandma's Stove, and it kind of shows his growth. Yeah, man, Soul Separately, although it doesn't have that underground edge that his past releases have had, I think Freddie creeps into the mainstream pretty nicely here without compromising his musical integrity. The bars are great, flows are fiery, the beats are varied, and the features are amazing. Number 7, we going at Vince Staples, Ramona Park Broke My Heart. On here, Vince details his grimy upbringing with sharp lyricism, catchy hooks, and smooth flows over top of some heavy atmospheric trap inspired beats. Coming off of the minimal approach from his last album, Self-Titled, Vince pretty much took that sound and slightly elevated it. I love how Vince's delivery isn't necessarily as assertive as we've heard it on his older music, but it's still effective in how he chooses his tones. Ramona Park seems to have Vince teetering between his love for his neighborhood and moving on from that and maturing from that lifestyle. And he details this so vividly on songs like When Sparks Fly, which is a genius play on his relationship with a gun and love interest at the same time. I think what makes me love this album so much is that it pretty much encapsulates the feeling of where he grew up in Long Beach, California. It encapsulated that sonically, although most of the time he's calmly rapping over these vibe heavy West Coast production, he's still spitting some of the grimiest shit you'll ever hear on a beat. And I think that's comparable to how in Long Beach, California, or in California in general, it'll look very nice. You know, the palm trees are there, the weather is great, everybody seems to be having a great time. But in reality, there are some very dangerous places to be, and you don't want to get caught up in the looks. I still think it's funny how this is probably the calmest I've ever heard somebody talk about shooting somebody at a gas station. Vince has always shown that he has a super sharp mind, and I think as he gets older, the genius shows through his music even more. And I think just looking back at his past albums, we can definitely see the growth in his music and how he decides to attack it. Great album. Vince Staples, Ramona Park Broke My Heart. Okay, number 5, we coming in with Nas, King's Disease 3. The fact that he has been in the game for this long and is having another crazy run. The third installment of King's Disease series, produced by Hit Boy, is probably his best yet, and that's saying a lot given the quality of the last two. This album proves that Hit Boy is really one of the best producers of the 2010s. He can really produce any type of beat and it'll sound great. He's able to sound classic and fresh at the same time with the soul samples, and his ability to elevate the classic boom bap beat is just amazing. I love the beat switches into a trap beat like on Michael and Quincy. Nas's energy on here is sounding like it's fucking 1994. His flow choices keep him sounding fresh, and lyrically he's as sharp as a fucking Ginsu knife. At this point in his career, he's still able to reminisce on his life and detail it with great introspection. And I think this album does a great job at making itself accessible to any age group that wants to get into hip hop. Even though it's a Nas album, it doesn't just sound like, 90s era hip hop. This sounds like elevated, up-to-date hip hop with 90s influence, if that makes sense. I mean, Nas rapping on the trap beat sounds better than people who started their careers rapping on trap beats, so that says enough it needs to say. Amazing work from a legendary rapper and a legendary producer. Nas, King's Disease 3. top 5 favorite album. Number 4, we're gonna go with Smino, Love for Rent. One of my favorite artists. I'm so happy that he came through with this album this year and delivered his best work to date, in my opinion. Smino's ability to deliver clever bars is unmatched, accompanied with his unlimited Rolodex of flows and melodies makes me such a fan of his music. I had a hard time pinning him down to even just a hip-hop album on here, just because how heavily he infuses R&B elements into his music. There's the hard-hitting, upbeat tracks where he shows off his lyricism and flows, like on No L's or Matinee or Pudgy, while tracks like Pro Freak and Settle Down sound like a good-ass cookout. And he's definitely not afraid to slow it down and dip into the R&B bag on tracks like More Than a Minute and Euphoria. I think you guys are starting to get a taste of my style here. I like albums that have a variety of sounds and they have a strong melodic aspect to it, and Smino definitely brings all of that to the table. I think Love for Rent is definitely one of the best albums of this year. At number 4, we are going with Pusha T. It's Almost Dry. With 2 of my favorite artists of all time on the production, there was no way that this wasn't going to make my top 10. It's just not possible. Pusha T, Cocaine's Dr. Seuss, took his role as the villain on here with a brand new energy. The maniacal laughs throughout the album as he viciously raps about the drug-filled experiences and name drops of French watches and jewelry makers. It just makes the aesthetics of this album explode with personality. And as Pusha T is dishing off the most braggadocious and maniacal bars, Pharrell and Kanye serve up some of the best hip-hop production of this year. Pharrell's signature flat hi-hats and snares on top of the thumping bass plays so well on songs like Let the Smoker Shine the Coops or Neck and Wrist. And I mean, do I need to talk about the Jay-Z verse? Do I really need to talk about the Jay-Z verse? Because shit. Kanye proves to be one of the most sampled choppers of all time. Dreaming with the Past and Diet Coke, just infectious samples on there. And I love that Pusha brought more features on here as well. I love Kid Cudi and Ye on Rock and Roll, and there's an extra emotion there on that song, given that this is probably the last that we'll ever hear Kid Cudi and Ye on the same track together. And as a matter of fact, this is probably the last time that we'll ever hear Pusha T and Ye together on a track, given that they just had a falling out. So this is probably going to go down as a pretty sad album, bittersweet. I love the playfulness of Don Toliver and Lil Uzi on Scrape It Off, and I Pray For You is the Clips reunion that we all needed. At a lot of moments this year, this album was the best album of the year. And when it came out, it was the best album of the year, in my opinion. So to be at 4 just shows you how loaded all of the albums are from this year. And I think that that's saying a lot. So Pusha T, shout out to you. Great album here. Number 3, we're coming in with JID, The Forever Story. As far as the bar and flow combo, one of the only guys that can fuck with Smino is JID. And man, did he give us that right out of the gate on this album. But man, this album is super impressive. JID hasn't dropped his own release since 2018 with DiCaprio 2. Of course, he's been on the Dreamville releases. He dropped this Spillage Village album. But we've all been fiending for a new solo release from JID, and I'm happy that we got this in return. The Forever Story details his upbringing in a way that's so vivid that it feels like we lived it with him. And this is exemplified with the vivid storytelling on Crack Sandwich, the soul instrumentals and vocals on Cody Blue 31, and the contrast between Brother Them and Sister Them. I always knew JID was a premier lyricist and rapper, but these tracks really showed his prowess in storytelling. And it sounds like it's on a level of Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole. But JID, he didn't leave out the fucking bangers on here, okay? Dance Now is one of my most played songs of the year, and Surround Sound goes equally as hard. Can't Punk Me makes you want to join a fucking fight club, and Just in Time is a bar fest from not only JID, but Lil Wayne himself. He killed his verse. I think JID really took all of his potential and executed it in such a pristine and varied way on this album. He told his story in a way that didn't sacrifice the music. In fact, it probably helped his story with the instrumentals he chose to tell it on. I love the fact that he's such a capable singer as well, and it helps this album have a really strong melodic aspect. And he wasn't afraid to experiment on tracks like Stars and Louder Too. Aside from that, the features did their thing as well. Great 21 Savage verse, like I said, a great Lil Wayne verse. Yasin Bey gave one of my favorite features of the year on here. And there's also a great singing aspect on here with Ari Lennox on Can't Make You Change, Raven Lene on Louder Too. Yeah, man, I think he's hitting on all cylinders on here. Just such a great emotionally driven album, but it also has this playfulness to it that it's just great. It's just great. Jay is definitely one of the best artists of this generation, and I think that he's going to continue to make amazing albums. Number 2, we're coming in with Denzel Curry, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. Denzel Curry has created a pretty strong fan base at this point, with most of us becoming fans of his fiery delivery and flows. And while he still shows that ability, he slowly transitioned from the upbeat, grimy trap production to more experimental beats, including elements of boom bap and jazz rap. And the Unlocked project with Kenny Beats is what sparked my excitement for this transition even more. And on Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, he exceeded my expectation. This album serves as a journey through Denzel's struggles with his mental health, detailing his disagreements with sobriety and how he bettered his mental stability. In this journey, Denzel uses his fiery delivery and refinements to fit on top of a more melodic and varied production. Melt Session number 1 features him over top of this beautiful jazz instrumental where he puts all of his problems in the forefront. His flow choice on here is reminiscent of some early and late 90s hip hop. And this is even evident as the song flows into the first half of Walkin' when that boom bap beat on it. I've got to say the jazz influenced tracks on here are some of my favorites, and that's helped by Robert Glasper, who's all over this thing on the keys. The lush pianos laced into mental make this a therapeutic listen, and they get increasingly experimental on tracks like Angels and especially like The Smell of Death, which is produced by Thundercat. The first half of the album details Denzel's mental struggles more explicitly with songs like Walkin', and even songs like Mental or Troubles. I love the existential sounds coming from the song Worst Comes to Worst. I love the JPEG Mafia produced John Wayne. It just sounds like an old Western with an electronic vibe going on with it. And I think you see this switch in his mental struggles as he's able to overcome them after troubles. You have Ain't No Way, which is one of my favorite songs of this year. Super hard hitting. You got Rico Nasty Black, JID on here. It's got a great beat switch on there, and that transitions into X-Wing, which is also one of my favorite songs on here as well. Hard-hitting trap production on here, and it still gets more experimental on songs like Zatoichi, where it's kind of got some Japanese soundtrack inspiration on here with a feature from Slow Tie as well. I just think this album is just really well fleshed out. I love the story that it tells. I love that it brings us on the journey as Denzel, as he overcomes his mental struggles. And I think over time, this album is going to age really well. This sounds timeless. There's not a track on here that sounds like stuck in today. And man, we're coming in with number 1, the top hip hop album of 2022. Man, I mean, who would I be if I didn't include this on this list, man? We're coming in with Kendrick Lamar, man, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It seems like my top 3 albums all have this overarching theme of dealing with your demons and trying to better yourself as a person. But I think Kendrick proves that his ability to convey his thoughts into a cohesive album is unmatched. He's been doing this at ultra high levels ever since the Good Kid, Mad City days, and every album since has dealt with his upbringing and how that has affected him in the present day. But on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, he completely strips back his ego in order to completely rid himself of his demons. And not only does he do this with hyper introspective lyrics, he includes people who directly affected his change to being a better person, such as his wife, his therapist, and even Kodak Black. And they kind of play as narrators on this album. This album kind of runs like a play or a musical that details Kendrick's journey and acts with a supporting cast and Kendrick as the main character. And this story is told with production that complements every step of the way. The dreary pianos and warping beat that opens United in Grief, where it abruptly transitions into the rusty, fast-paced beat on United in Grief. And it matches the rapid flow and themes of adultery from Kendrick. You got the slow-paced, heavy beat and glossy synths on Purple Hearts, and it matches the themes of love. And nearly every song on here has its own dedicated production style and aesthetics, which is a testament to the diversity of Kendrick's delivery. Thematically, this album can be a tough listen, which does cause me to skip certain songs that I don't necessarily want to hear without listening to the whole album, especially songs like Mother I Sober and Auntie Diaries, which cover topics of family and generational trauma. drama. And even We Cry Together gets skipped sometimes just because it's such a performance. It's not necessarily a playlist song, but that doesn't make this any worse of an album. These songs just aren't that high in replay value, but they are amazing songs in the context of the whole album. I think that this album has a lot of songs on it that has that replay value, which I've seen people say that it doesn't. I mean, we're talking about N95 on here, which is a super hard-hitting banger. You got Rich Spirit, which is one of the best songs of this year. You hear it on the radio. I think Die Hard and Purple Hearts are great R&B laced songs that I think would sound great inside of a playlist. It sounds great in my fucking car. And you even have Count Me Out, and then the more upbeat Silent Hill and Savior. Like, all of these tracks are tracks that you can play over and over and over again that fit well into a playlist. Everything seems so meticulous. I mean, I think we're used to getting that from a Kendrick Lamar album. We know that it's going to mean something, but I think this album means the most to Kendrick Lamar. You can see how the album starts out with Kendrick acknowledging the things that he has been through, going through that denial, dealing with his past and how he grew up, especially on tracks like Father Time. And then on the volume 2, you kind of see him sitting down and putting that mirror up and really actually dealing with it. And ultimately, on the track Mirror, he comes to say that I'm not your savior and I'm sorry, but he chooses himself over trying to be this person so he can be a better person for his family and the people that he loves. And I think that's something that a lot of people should be able to relate to. And I think it's commendable for Kendrick Lamar himself. It's showing that he's human. It's showing that even though he's regarded as one of the best rappers and artists of this generation, he's still a human and he has problems just like everybody else. The storytelling, the production, the flows, the delivery, everything is here. And I don't think any other album can really touch how pristine this album is. And I think we're gonna look back at this album and be like, wow, this is a fucking masterpiece. So that's it, man. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is the #1 album of this year. You guys let me know what your favorite albums were. Do you agree with my top albums? What did I leave out? I'm sorry. I don't know. I listen to a lot of music. I can't put them all in the same list. But yeah, man, thank you guys for watching. This has been SoleTracks, my top 25 hip-hop albums of the year. Make sure you comment down below. Check all of the descriptions. Hit that like button. Share it to your mama's mama and her friend. And go ahead and hit subscribe if you made it to the end of the video, man. Thank you guys a lot. I'll see you next time. SoleTracks out.